The War of Five Kings, they're calling it.
This'll be my last war. Win or lose.
Tywin Lannister is one of the few characters in Game of Thrones who, at a certain point, held truly colossal power in his hands. Just consider this. After the Battle of the Blackwater, Tywin becomes Hand of the King, formally, the second most powerful man in the realm. In reality, he is the one who runs everything. Joffrey Baratheon is king in title only. All key decisions, war, the treasury, marriages, courts, alliances, are made by Tywin. Even Cersei Lannister, despite being regent, is pushed into the background. Militarily, Tywin may not command the finest army in the world, but his position is the most stable. After forging an alliance with the House Tyrell, he gains not just political backing, but also food supplies, a fleet, and fresh military reserves. The House Frey and the House Bolton are also on the Lannisters' side. At this point, neither Stannis Baratheon, nor the fractured northern forces, nor the Iron Islands can field a comparable coalition. Moreover, the Red Wedding cements Tywin's reputation as a man best not crossed, and many lords simply surrender to the Lannisters out of fear. And yet, despite all these obvious advantages, Tywin ultimately fails to hold on to power.
Tyrion, put down the crossbow.
Formally, he is brought down by Tyrion Lannister's crossbow bolt, but what exactly made such a situation possible? In this video, we'll break it down. Which chain of decisions and events, step by step, led to this moment? And what single critical mistake by Tywin Lannister ultimately brought him to this grim end? The climactic point of Tywin Lannister's journey is, of course, the trial of Tyrion Lannister. It is in this moment that Tywin's central mistake reveals itself most clearly. But to understand why he acted this way, and why he set this whole trial in motion in the first place, we need to look into his past. Into the part of the story that isn't shown in Game of Thrones series, but is revealed in the books. Only there can we grasp Tywin's hidden motivations. Tywin Lannister was born into one of the richest and most powerful families in the Seven Kingdoms. At the time, the head of the house was his father, Tydos Lannister. Despite the family's immense wealth, he was not a strong ruler. Tydos readily lent out gold and rarely insisted on repayment, choosing softness where strength was required. Such a policy inevitably undermined the authority of House Lannister. Some vassals began to sense their liege lord's weakness, and some even mocked the Lannisters, calling them toothless lions. House Reyne went especially far. Their wealth had nearly rivaled that of the Lannisters themselves. In the end, their growing influence turned into open rebellion against Lord Tytos. Tytos failed to act decisively and simply lost control of the situation, so his son Tywin decided it was time to take matters into his own hands. Tywin personally crushed the revolt, wiping House Reyne from the face of the earth and restoring the Lannisters' reputation. This ruthless victory was immortalized in the song The Rains of Castamere. It is commonly believed that after the Reyne Rebellion, the phrase "Lannisters always pay their debts" came into widespread use, a saying that, in truth, only indirectly referred to money and meant inevitable retribution. It is quite possible the Reyne Uprising and his father's helplessness during it shaped Tywin Lannister's harsh character, a behavioral model that would later echo, for example, in what happened to the House Stark at the Red Wedding. After Castamere, Tywin learned what may have been the most important lesson of his life. Fear and severity are more reliable than concessions and compromise. And practice showed that, when dealing with vassals, this principle was often the most effective of all. This is how Jaime Lannister later described it.
Every great lord has unruly bannermen who envy him his place. My father had the Reynes and Tarbecks. The Tyrells have the Florents. Hoster Tully had Walder Frey. Only strength keeps such men in their place, the moment they smell weakness. During the Age of Heroes, the Boltons used to flay the Starks and wear their skins as cloaks.
After the Reyne Rebellion, a personal tragedy strikes Tywin Lannister. His wife Joanna Lannister dies, giving birth to Tyrion Lannister. Tywin loses not only his wife, but also the one person who may have been capable of softening his harsh nature. This loss is reflected in his family life as well. Toward his children, Tywin keeps his distance and operates primarily through demands and control. Interestingly, Tywin always maintained warm relationships with his brothers and sisters. There is also a scene in Game of Thrones where Tywin interacts with Arya Stark, unaware of who she really is. In that moment, he unexpectedly shows attentiveness and even a degree of care, suggesting that despite his cruelty, Tywin clearly possesses the capacity for warmth and gentleness.
You hungry?
No?
Of course you are. Eat. It's bad manners to refuse a lord's offer.
This raises a logical question. Why did he never show that warmth toward his own children? One possible explanation is that his children stood at the very center of his plans and ambitions. To him, they were not so much a family as the foundation of his obsessive idea of a dynasty that must endure for centuries.
All of us dead, all of us rotting in the ground. A family name that lives on. It's all that lives on. Not your personal glory, not your honor, but family.
In matters Tywin considers fundamental, he allows no weakness. There is no room for softness here, because his father's example taught him a simple formula: concessions and leniency destroy a house. That is why, with those who fall outside the sphere of his core interests, Tywin is capable of being humane, whether it is a brother, a political partner, or even a nameless servant girl. But when his vision of legacy and power is at stake, he chooses control and severity. This is not an inborn trait, but the result of his life experience. And this is exactly how Tywin Lannister is first presented to us in Game of Thrones. There is perhaps no more precise scene revealing Tywin Lannister's character than his very first appearance in the series. From the very first minute, it becomes clear, this is not a simple man. He speaks to his son without even looking at him, standing with his back turned, calmly and methodically butchering an animal's carcass. In this methodical calm, you can sense iron will, flawless self-discipline, and the confidence of a predator. At the same time, there is not a trace of warmth. If you didn't know who these two were, you might think this was not a father speaking to his son, but a commander receiving a report from an officer.
I'm giving you half of our forces, 30,000 men.
Jaime Lannister makes excuses like a soldier after a failed mission, while Tywin Lannister listens, measuring every word. There is not a trace of empathy in his voice, only cold calculation. He is not concerned with feelings, only with the outcome. What was done, what was not done, and what must now be done. Tywin has a goal, to build a dynasty that will outlive them all. For that, he is willing to sacrifice anyone. Before us stands a man who is harsh, callous, and relentlessly demanding, both of himself and of others.
Attacking him was stupid.
Lannisters, don't act like fools.
Obedience comes naturally to him, and other people's feelings are secondary.
I need you to become the man you were always meant to be. Not next year, not tomorrow.
Beyond the scene with the butchered carcass, the series offers many other moments where Tywin is revealed just as vividly. One such example is his arrival in the capital after the Battle of the Blackwater. While the courtiers bow and scrape before the new king, Joffrey Baratheon,
You honor me beyond words, Your Grace.
Your Grace, I am yours to command.
Tywin Lannister rides straight into the throne room on horseback, not even bothering to dismount.
My name.
This moment says more about him than any words ever could. It underscores his exceptional status and makes clear who the true ruler of that place really is. There are also scenes where Joffrey Baratheon tries to assert himself and show Tywin Lannister that it is he who is the king.
My father won the real war, while you hid under Castle Rock!
But every time, Tywin extinguishes his fervor with a few cold remarks and puts him back in his place.
The king is tired. See him to his chambers.
In moments like these, it becomes absolutely clear who truly holds power here, and that the throne itself is little more than a formality. Moreover, Tywin Lannister does not repeat the mistakes of his predecessor, King Robert. He knows moderation when it comes to wine, fully aware that in critical moments, a clear and sober mind is essential.
Not wine, water. We'll be here for some time.
Tywin Lannister is a textbook example of a strongman ruler. He strives for absolute power and control and is willing to use any means necessary to achieve his goals. In reality, all the might of House Lannister rested solely on Tywin himself. The moment he died, everything began to unravel. His children turned on one another, allies drifted away, and former greatness crumbled into dust. Now that we have examined Tywin's past and the kind of man he was, we can finally move on to the key question. What ultimately brought him down? What shaped Tywin above all was his past. His father showed weakness and naivete, nearly driving their house to ruin. Tywin seized power, restored order, and learned a harsh lesson. Only those capable of cruelty survive. From that point on, this became his core principle. Only fear, discipline, and hierarchy produce results.
If another house can seize one of our own and hold him captive with impunity, we are no longer a house to be feared.
He applied the same logic to his family. To him, the Lannisters were not a family, but a structure that had to be kept in perfect order. Jaime Lannister was a function, the heir. Cersei Lannister was a pawn for political games, and potentially the mother of a future heir. Tyrion Lannister was a flaw in the system, something to be eliminated. Tywin demanded that his children perform their roles, but offered no recognition in return.
I need you to become the man you were always meant to be. Not next year, not tomorrow.
As a result, each of them either resisted, looked for ways around him, or quietly accumulated hatred. Tywin was building a dynasty, but he was not building relationships. All of this became painfully clear during the trial of Tyrion. The key question is this: did Tywin actually intend to execute him? When facing the crossbow, he claims he did not.
I never let them execute you. You're a Lannister.
And I believe him. In my view, his plan was different. From the very beginning, everything was staged. As Tywin himself admitted before his death, he had wanted to get rid of Tyrion his entire life. He had sent him into battle hoping he would not return, but Tyrion survived.
When the battle commences, you and your wildlings will be in the vanguard.
Me and the tribesmen on the front lines.
There are ways to have me killed that would be less detrimental to the war effort.
There will be no more discussion on the matter.
He hopes Tyrion would perish at the Battle of the Blackwater, but again, he lived. Ever since the days of Tywin's father, Tywin could not tolerate mockery, and Tyrion was often mocked, yet he was still a Lannister. On top of that, every one of Tyrion's birthdays reminded Tywin of his wife's death.
You who killed your mother to come into the world, made, spiteful little creature, and to teach me humility, the gods have condemned me to watch you waddle about, wearing that proud lion that was my father's sigil and his father's before him.
That is why, it seems to me, Tywin had a deeply pathological desire to humiliate and crush Tyrion during the trial. If we recall Joffrey Baratheon's wedding, we see that neither Tywin nor, especially, Cersei attempts to stop Joffrey as he publicly humiliates Tyrion. In fact, it feels as though they take pleasure in it. That is why Shae is forced to testify in such detail, even describing intimate aspects of her relationship with Tyrion that have no real connection to Joffrey's murder. Tywin may not have been entirely opposed to Tyrion's execution, but simply killing him was unacceptable. Lannisters are not executed like commoners. And besides, there was a far smarter and more effective option. Accuse him of murdering Joffrey, stage a public trial, bring him to the brink of execution, and then magnanimously spare him, sending him far away to the Night's Watch. There was another bonus as well, a deal with Jaime. Tywin had always hoped that Jaime would continue the Lannister line. But by joining the Kingsguard and taking a vow of celibacy, Jaime defied his father's will.
You're blessed with abilities that few men possess. You're blessed to belong to the most powerful family in the kingdom, and you're still blessed with youth. And what have you done with these blessings? Huh? You've served as a glorified bodyguard for two kings, one a madman, the other a drunk. I need you to become the man you were always meant to be.
Despite all of Tywin's efforts, Jaime refused to leave the Kingsguard. In an attempt to win his son over, Tywin even gifted him a Valyrian steel sword reforged from Eddard Stark's greatsword.
Magnificent. Looks fresh forged.
You can't serve in the King's Guard with one hand.
Where's that written? I can and I will.
You'll return to Casterly Rock. and rule in my stead. There is a precedent to relieve a king's guard of his duties. The king will exercise that prerogative.
No.
No?
But my answer is still no. I don't want Casterly Rock. I don't want wife. I don't want children.
What do you want?
It is possible that Tywin even viewed the War of the Five Kings as a chance to pull Jaime out of the Kingsguard, arguing that a true Lannister should lead their armies, not guard the king's chambers. The trial of Tyrion was yet another opportunity to influence Jaime, and Tywin used it with calculated precision. He knew Jaime would never allow his brother to die, and would do anything to save him. And when Jaime came to him, ready to leave the Kingsguard in exchange for Tyrion's life, Tywin seized that concession instantly and sealed the agreement with his word.
It survives. Through me. I'll leave the Kingsguard. I'll take my place as your son and heir. If you let Tyrion live.
Done.
The flash of shock on Jaime's face showed that he understood Tywin's plan, but far too late. So in Tywin's eyes, the entire trial was a perfect game. He gave up the useless, irritating pawn Tyrion, and in return gained a queen, Jaime, the heir, the man who would carry on his dynasty.
When the testament is concluded and the guilty verdict rendered, Tyrion will be given the chance to speak. He'll plead for mercy. I'll allow him to join the Night's Watch. In 3 days' time, he'll depart for Castle Black and live out his days of the war. You'll remove your white cloak immediately. You will leave King's Landing to assume your rightful place at Casterly Rock. You will marry a suitable woman, father children named Lannister. And you'll never turn your back on your family again.
You have my word.
And you have mine.
But Tywin went too far.
Pleasure, isn't it?
You've wanted me dead.
He was brilliant at strategy, yet because of his callousness, he utterly failed to understand human emotion, and therefore could not predict it. The trial of Tyrion proved this beyond doubt. Tywin underestimated personal resentment, and that miscalculation became his catastrophe. He was not killed by an enemy, not by Stannis Baratheon, and not by the House Stark. He was killed by his own son, the direct result of the system of power he himself had spent decades constructing. Power collapsed from within. He built an empire on cold calculation, but forgot that the people around him were living human beings, not pieces on a chessboard. He dreamed of eternal Lannister glory, of a legacy that would endure for centuries. But history remembered him differently, as a man who died without his trousers, on a privy, at the hands of his own son. Overall, Tywin Lannister is a remarkably fascinating character, and it's obvious that fully breaking him down within a single video is simply impossible. So this overview is only an attempt to grasp the core logic behind his actions, and I would like to dedicate at least one more video to Tywin in the future. And if you support that idea, please consider supporting the channel in any way that's convenient for you. Even a like or a comment helps a lot. Also, let me know which other characters from Game of Thrones you'd like to see covered in future videos set in George Martin's universe.